something about us being artists and creative types. There's an urge to create. And if you don't acknowledge that urge, it's just going to build up and it's going to explode, right? And so you would fear getting started on a project until a certain point and go, damn it, I'm going to do it. I'm going to just try making something, and just take baby steps. If it sounds terrible, fine. You're just sharing it among like some other producer friends. And so the other thing that I find it's extremely helpful is just to be part of a community. And when you find that you're in a community, you're more able to take those steps to overcome your fears, to kind of share stuff that just sounds terrible, but who cares, because we're all sharing stuff that sounds terrible. You find that as you grow together, you get better. You just keep creating and you get better.
Welcome everybody to the
Faking Notes podcast.
Woo!
We got a Faking Fam feature today.
Faking Fam feature!
And we are featuring Antshay. He is one of our longest listeners, one of our most active Discord members, a generous Patreon supporter, and just an incredible human being. This conversation was so valuable because I learned or relearned like what it takes to be great at so many different things.
He talks about learning new skills and overcoming failure and trying new things. And so he was already such a fascinating individual, getting to know him over Discord and seeing him interact with some of our other guests like Bad Snacks and seeing his music. He's dropping stuff on Spotify. Then just to learn, he's an infectious disease expert.
Mm-hmm.
He's an MD, and he's done all these other fascinating things in both the physical world and the digital world. So he's a perfect Faking Fam guest. We're talking about failures and how to overcome them, making things fun, going out and learning new things. We dip in our toe, as always, into a little bit of blockchain at the end and what that means for our Faking Fam. And then we talk about the support system. So he's got 3 teenagers, he's got a loving, supportive wife, and he's doing all these things, all these amazing things across the whole spectrum of his life. And he's still out there learning, he's still out there creating, and he's still being a critical part of the Faking Notes family. So Antshay, we love having you in here. And if you want to join him and speak with him, you can do so through our Discord. And you can also contribute, just like Antshay, to our Patreon. So use him as a model.
Yeah, and if there's nothing that you get from this conversation, I want you to understand that it's never too late to start learning that thing that you've always wanted to learn, because you're worth it and you will always thank yourself at the end of the day.
It's a great episode. And without further ado, our next guest, Faking Fam feature,
Antshay.
OG Faking Fam.
Antshay, welcome to the Faking Notes podcast.
Wow, thank you so much, guys. Thank you for the invite.
It's our pleasure, man. Like it's been such a pleasure, having such an active member of the Faking Fam, engaging with everybody, asking questions. We have a lot of like younger people that are just in high school or just about to graduate, who are asking questions about career and stuff. And I love how you step in and guide them and ask questions and make them feel seen. It's just so valuable. You're such a wonderful member of our community. We appreciate you.
Yeah, it's been fun, part of the Discord, and I've been listening to Faking Notes podcast. It's almost going to be 2 years.
Whoa!
Yeah, so I'm definitely Faking Fam.
Oh snap!
Yeah, but I might be the oldest guy in the whole Discord. I'm kind of like the oldest guy in a lot of Discords.
What's that like, man? Because there are a lot of people, like my mom included, that just don't even know how to do FaceTime.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, it's been great. When you're online, age almost doesn't really matter too much. It's what's your thought, your interests, your thoughts, and who you are as a person.
Mhm.
So I don't find that age has been a barrier, and I've been very honored to make a lot of friends online and meet some of them in person as well.
We're so happy to have you on because of those aspects. You both have a fascinating and growing presence in the digital space, in the digital world, where it's kind of free of that age. But also, you've had quite a life and done a lot of really fascinating things in the physical world up until this point, which is kind of just amazing. You'd be like, wow, this guy, he's going out, he's part of the community, he's making beats, he's releasing music videos. And then you, it's like, wait, he does what for a career? He's got a family, he's got kids, like he's done
Mhm.
all these other things. Like, how does he do it all? So could you just briefly describe your job, as it were, and how has the past 2 years been for you?
Yeah, no problem. So just a little self-introduction. So
Yeah.
my name is Anthony. I'm known online as Antshay. I wear a lot of hats. I'm a semi-retired physician. I specialize in infectious diseases. Yeah, I have 3 teenage kids whom I love, and I'm happily married for 20 years now.
Oh,
So yeah, yeah. So
congratulations.
I really do feel like I've lived many lifetimes.
Mhm.
And just like the rest of you guys, when the pandemic hit, it really changed my life, and it really allowed me to explore some new things because we were all like in quarantine and all that, and myself included. I had to go to work, but I was also quarantined. So it just opened a lot of opportunities to try new things. And that's one of the mottos of my life is I'm going to just try new things. I don't care how old I am. If something looks interesting, I'm just going to go for it and learn about it.
That is like the personification. You
Yeah.
are the essence of our motto, faking notes. You know what I mean? It's like it's to continually learn. You have to kind of get out of the way and like be okay with being new at things, which is something that is really difficult the longer you are on this earth. And so how do you, like in your mind, how do you frame that discomfort and how you deal with the discomfort of being new at something and not being like necessarily good at it, and what sort of wisdom you could pass forward?
Right. When I look at something, let's say YouTube or music production or learning to play the guitar, whatever it is,
Mhm.
I start with just watching and observing. And when something looks interesting, the way I think, I just go, I'm just going to try that. I think I can do that. And just takes all it takes is baby steps and just going for it, you know? And so it's really no secret. It's just that's been my approach. I grew up playing the violin. I was one of those kids that the parents made me play when I was 4, and I hated it. I quit. And this was in
Mhm.
Taiwan. I'm from Taiwan originally, but I came to the US. But somewhere along elementary school, I got a hold of Tchaikovsky's Violin Concerto, a recording by Kyung Chung, and I just fell in love with it. And I listened to it over and over again, and I couldn't play it, but I just wanted to try, and so I would fake it. I would have it playing on a cassette, and I would just play along with it. And I couldn't hit the notes, but I could just fake the runs, and so even as a kid, like when something interests me, I just want to learn about it and I want to try it. And same thing with music production. you know um, 2 years ago, I was just driving to a ski trip, and I came across Bad Snacks Music. She's been a guest on the show,
Mhm.
Oh
Mhm.
and
yeah.
it
Mhm.
just blew my mind. And I'm like, how do you make this kind of music,
Mhm.
I thought I've heard it all, but I was like, well, how do you make electronic music? And so she has like YouTube videos, and she has tutorial, and she literally breaks down how she makes one of these. And when I watch that and I go, I can do that. I think I can do that. And
Mhm.
just step by step, just trying it and following her instructions. And I actually made a video of my process the first time I used Ableton. So that was like 2 years ago.
Dang. Wow.
It's incredible to see this type of growth and to witness someone who's been faking notes for a long time and going out and doing all of these things. I'm curious because I don't imagine that the pie chart between music video making, beat makers, and infectious disease experts is like that big of a circle. But am I missing out? Is there a secret Discord of
No.
infectious disease exports and beat makers, where you unite?
No, but there may be a relation with physicians and music, because the discipline that you require, especially in classical music, the discipline that you need to get good at your craft, and the time that you need to really practice and study and hone your skills. I mean, that's very applicable in the medical field. So I think a lot of physician colleagues, we have that music background. In fact, there are physician orchestras out there too. So it's the same kind of mentality. It's like just being very driven, dedicated, being methodical, and going for it.
I love
I
that. I've
love
seen a
it.
bunch of those, like all kind of all throughout the country. I even remember back in North Carolina, other than the regional orchestras and the North Carolina Symphony and something to get paid, there's not that many opportunities at all for adults or amateurs or second career musicians or even younger people post school to play in an orchestra. And one of the few was a reading orchestra that was associated with doctors. It was, I think, I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but it was right there in Raleigh. There's tons of doctors there. I think it was affiliated maybe with Duke or something like that.
Mhm.
But these orchestras where it's filled with all these medical professionals. And it was great for me because a lot of these pieces I'd want to play, we don't get to in college. There's different things you have to do. But just to even go through and do readings with these groups was really fun. The first and only time probably that I got to play the Rite of Spring was
Mhm.
with a bunch of doctors. And what an experience that was. It's a really hard piece to just like hop in and casually play. But it was a really neat opportunity. And it was also fun to be surrounded by people who were there by choice. They wanted to do a good job. It was still fun. It was a break for all of them, an opportunity for them to make music, but to witness other people who haven't been like kind of stuck with some of the like the negative things we talk about with the music career. They haven't quite been beat down by that. They've been beat down by another field. But to kind of see experts and people still approaching the music methodically and with seriousness, but who didn't have the issues that kind of came with the negative side effects of music. It was just fun to see.
Yeah, I mean, music has always been a big part of my life, and you need that outlet, because for what I do professionally as a physician, it's all serious. Talking life and death things. I take care of people in the ICU. I have to break bad news, and so it's very difficult, and people burn out. And in fact, I that's what happened to me. I gave medicine my heart and soul for about 15 years, and I just got to a point where I couldn't do it anymore. I felt burnt out, and so I wanted to leave completely. But I was lucky that my chief said, why don't you work part time for us? Don't leave completely. Work part time, and I did that. And now I basically work about 3 days a week, and I have 4 days off to mess with things like music and music production or video production. It's been great to have that balance, but it's definitely an outlet, and we need that.
I don't know if you know this, but like my girlfriend is an emergency medical resident at UCLA.
Oh wow,
And
great.
so, yeah. So I hear a lot of these same things on the daily basis when we talk about the work. And I'm kind of wondering, like, what sort of advice would you have for people that are feeling that burnout? Is the answer to kind of like step away and find something new? Like, does your like beat making journey begin with this feeling of burnout, or was it something that you kind of been doing along the side as your refuge? I'm just curious.
Yeah. So, I mean, when I first stepped away from medicine, I explored different things. I was into gardening for a while. I was
Mm,
growing veggies in my backyard, tomato, bok
Mm.
choy, and all that. So that was something. I started getting into electric guitar because, you know,
mm.
playing violin, growing up, a lot of times you felt like you're just playing for grandpas and grandmas, and your
Mhm.
friends didn't really think it was cool. And so I always wanted to be that cool kid that rocked out on the
Same.
guitar. So
Same.
yeah, so I got into guitar, and I got really into that. And naturally, you just watch a lot of YouTube videos. And when I saw that, I'm like, I want to make a YouTube video. I want to make some YouTube videos. So I was able to make a couple of unboxing videos and product demos, and those just took off, right? So
Really?
yeah, so that was kind of my journey. I just tried different things. And then music production definitely was more of a recent thing. In fact, for the longest time, I was just a consumer. I didn't really feel like I was a producer. I was in these discords
Mm.
and really talented beat makers. I was just happy being the guy that would listen to what everybody puts out, you know?
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
it was definitely a journey going from being a consumer of music and content to being a producer. And that took, that was kind of a journey for me.
I
It
wanted
really
to
is.
jump in and specifically nail on that. And this is stealing a question and a point from Drew, because we wanted to find out like what were the challenges of making that transition. Because in this day and age, so many people are consuming, and yet the tools and access to be a creator and producer of content is becoming even more readily available. But yet it's still a scary thing. What were some of the challenges of going through that transition?
I would say definitely 90% of it was mental. It's basically struggling with the idea that you have something worthwhile to share. It's struggling with the idea that you might be an artist. I've
Uh-oh.
only recently,
Uh-oh.
yeah, I've only recently come to grips with the
Infectious
fact that,
disease.
hey, yeah, I mean, like, who am I? I'm a father. I'm an old guy. I'm a physician. I'm not an artist. People like Drew, he's an artist.
Oh,
People like Bad
stop.
Snacks, they're artists. And so it was a lot of it was mental, and so that was the biggest barrier. But you find that there is also a creative drive. There's something about us being artists and creative types. There's an urge to create, and if you don't acknowledge that urge, it's just going to build up and it's going to explode, right? And so you would fear getting started on a project until a certain point and go, damn it, I'm going to do it. I'm just going to, I'm
Mm.
going to just try making something,
Mhm.
and just take baby steps. And if it sounds terrible, fine. You're just sharing it among like some other producer friends. And so
Mhm.
the other thing that I find it's extremely helpful is just to be part of a community. I was really fortunate to be part of two beat making communities, one through Basnax and another one through Dressage, who's a vocalist and a producer here in LA. And when you find that you're in the community, you're more able to take those steps to overcome your fears, to kind of share stuff that just sounds terrible, but who cares? Because we're all sharing stuff that sounds terrible. You know, you find that as you grow together, you get better. You just keep creating, you get better.
In the classical music realm, this is kind of like studio class. So like when I was at Juilliard, we had this studio called the Oct Studio, ACHT, and it was Misha Amory, Sinyan Huang, Heidi Castleman, and Steve Tenenbaum. And they would all get together on a Wednesday evening, every Wednesday, 6 p.m. And all of their students, all like 40 some of us would come together, and maybe 5 or 6 of them would play to prepare for an audition, to prepare for a studio recital, yada, yada, yada. And yeah, like everybody there was super good, but also sometimes people would mess up
Mm-hmm.
and it would be kind of embarrassing, but it was just like this kind of family that was very different than everywhere else in Juilliard. Everywhere else in Juilliard is pretty cutthroat,
Mm-hmm.
but our little environment was like super welcoming. We would give really good constructive criticism
Mm-hmm.
and not tear people down, but be like, I love what you did here. I think this is your golden goose. This is it. Where I think you can make it more effective now that we know this is what's important, here's where you can like make it even more effective. And then there's another thing that is super amazing that I've never heard before that I think you should do more of as well. And it just the way you describe it and the way your community uplifts you, it's so interesting that that's now translating to Discord.
Yeah.
I'd never even
Right.
considered it to be similar, but yeah,
Yeah.
if everybody's like learning, the actions that you would typically see on a YouTube or on an Instagram, you're like, this sucks, that will get you ostracized from the group.
Right.
And it's also not constructive. So thank you for sharing that, because I think, at least from my perspective, I had never considered Discord to be like a safe space to like share and grow. But
Right. Yeah. And it's something that I really hope that we can build on in the Faking Fam Discord.
yeah,
I,
me
I
too.
I see a big difference in, let's say, classical music world and beat making world. In the beat making world, you have so much freedom to be creative and to explore sounds and to be unique and to be yourself, kind of creating your own music, your own ideas, rather than following what's already written and trying to play like so and so, it's such a difference. And that's something I find that for this Discord, that's going to be a challenge to build. And we got to find our own niche to see what that could be,
Mhm.
So, like,
Mhm.
for example, could we set up a listening party, where people can just share whatever pieces they're working on? It doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, we encourage people not to have to submit things that are just like studio perfect. So
Mhm.
listening party, you and Trevor and all of us, we can just all share work in progress and you can give feedback. This is what we do in the other Discords, and it really
Okay.
builds community.
I want to see that. I want to see that.
Yeah. Yeah. I just feel like in the classical world, it's just harder to have that creativity. But whereas in the beat making world, you take a sample, you stretch the heck out of it, you warp it, you
Yeah.
saturate it, you distort, and you just go wild. And I don't feel that in the classical world you have the same kind of freedom. But we could still do it. We could still try. You can sponsor competitions even. Like we'll have like, $100 to whoever participates, and top 3 will get a prize or whatever it
I
is.
love
These are
that.
ideas to get things going in the Discord.
And it's definitely something we
Yo.
want to we're gonna continue to try and grow and emphasize it, because that is where the community is. And that's like one of the faults of podcasting, is that for so many years and just since its inception, it is a one-way conversation.
Yeah.
It's like tricky to go in and subscribe to these things, and yet because you're listening to it like so close to your ears, it's someone speaking to you, you feel this direct connection with a lot of the hosts. Like there are podcasts that I've listened to for years where I feel like I know these people personally because they've been speaking to me. They have no idea who I am. I've never actually interacted with them. And it's this weird sensation. And now with tools like Discord, particularly looking in at Bat's Next server and Dear Evergreens was, I think, the first reason I downloaded Discord was to do research before her episode, to join in there. And I went in there, I'm like, what is going on here? This is awesome. I just listened to, I think it's CD Baby's sponsored podcast. It was like, is social media dead? Question mark, clickbait title. But
Right.
one of the things they were talking about is that the numbers are showing that, at least in the younger generations, they aren't flooding and flocking to your big name Facebook, Instagram, other platforms. Obviously TikTok, it's huge, but a big place that is seeing massive amount of growth is Discord. That's where they're going. And it makes a lot of sense because of the value of community. We love these groups. It's kind of like you get the positive or the nice sides of a Facebook group, but without having to deal with Facebook and
Right.
all the downsides of that. Because like nowadays with the algorithms, Instagram, Facebook, these big platforms, TikTok will eventually have to do it. They can't service you everything that's created. They're not showing all of your friends all of your stuff. It might hit 1% of your friends list and then it's disappeared. Whereas Discord, you're already narrowing in the public square. It's already like honed down into that set community, and you can have your own rules within the community, and you can self-moderate, and you can do all these things within that community, but you get a lot of the positives without dealing with a lot of like the algorithmic issues of larger social media platforms. So it's really striking, and it's just been neat to see so many more people beyond just a niche little app for gamers to talk.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of friends in
Yeah.
other Discords. They would say the same thing. I'm getting out of Instagram because it's not good for my mental health to look at everybody's perfect performance, and to feel like I'm no good, right? I mean, Drew, you're in that space. We can watch your videos and go, "Oh, I'll never be like Drew. I feel terrible about myself." But I mean, people are leaving Instagram. Twitter is not the best place to build community. You know,
Mhm.
and TikTok is just crazy. And Facebook is kind of like Instagram in that sense, where people only show their best selves. And so Discord is a good place. It's different. It's a different kind of social media where it could be very positive. So yeah, so it's been fun. It's
Yeah.
been fun being part of it.
Can we actually talk a little bit about that? Because, like, it's interesting. The community of, like, Facebook or Meta,
Yeah.
the whole Meta community, right? It can be very toxic.
Mhm.
And the way the algorithm works is that it reinforces controversy. So even if something is like really bad, it does really good on the algorithm, especially if people are commenting their disdain for it, right? But if something's good and it makes people feel less than, the whole concept of it is not to like make people feel bad. At least when it comes to like what I create, that is the last thing that I want people to feel is like, that what I do is unattainable, because it is, especially if you haven't been following me since like 2013. And if you're seeing me today, I really invite you to go back to 2014 videos, 15-second videos, and listen to me then. Very different player, right? And that's why I don't delete old stuff. I wonder though, because like even if I do post like bloopers or mess ups and stuff like that, it doesn't really do well. And then you've got those couple of assholes in the comment section. They're just like
every time
they're just like, why does he have so much followers? I could do that. It doesn't incentivize that same sharing that, like a Discord does. But I don't know how one would fix that.
Yeah, speaking of your old videos, I did go and watch a bunch of them. I've watched your video on how to vibrato. A bunch of your how to get into Juilliard.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no, you've come a long way too. And that's just the thing that we were talking about. For you to get better, just keep producing, just keep making it. Have you read this book, Art and Fear?
No.
Oh, okay. That's really good. Okay, Art and Fear. But anyway, there was this one example of a pottery teacher, and he broke the class up into two groups. One group, he says, I'm only going to judge you on quantity of pots that you make. So make as many pots as you can, and I'm going to judge you on that. And the other half of the class, he says, I'm going to judge you on quality. So you just make one really good pot, okay? And guess what happened at the end? So it turns out that people that produce quantity, like they made the most, those people turned out to have the best pots because they just did their craft over and over again. They got better at it, and they just knew what they had to do, and they improved on their craft just by sheer number of pots, right? Whereas those people that only had to make one pot perfect, theirs turned out terrible because they spent too much time theorizing what it should be. And anyway, so the point is, to get good at your craft, just keep producing, keep at it, just keep going, because with every success or failure, you'll learn from it and you'll just get better. And I need to take that advice myself, because honestly, every time somebody asks me to collab with them, my first thought is, oh, I can't do it. I'm terrible. I'm a terrible musician. I can't do it. So I have to take my own advice and just keep going.
Me too, brother. Like making beats is still like something I struggle with, because I've tried to collab with a few people in the past. They will remain nameless, and I've like sent my stems and like sent some ideas, and they would just ghost me, and I was like,
yeah.
oh no, I'm trash.
Are these opportunities where they reached out to you or you reached out to them?
It would be mutual. Like they'd be like, yeah, you want to do something? I'm like, yeah. And then we would like throw some ideas around. What I think it really is an indication of is like, I think in addition to that, if people are wanting to work with you, Antshay, do it, man. I'm telling you, I want to see more collabs from you. I do. And I love that idea of like, I'm actually going to buy this book, Art and Fear.
Yes.
I added it to my cart already.
It's not expensive. It's actually really good.
Yeah, books are the best investment you'll ever make. But like, I think, yeah, that iteration, it's like the motto of Faking Notes.
Yeah. Another point that this book, Art and Fear, addresses, it's like I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of mental things when you come to creative, when it comes to making music or art, because your personal self is so tied into what you make, and you're so afraid of failure, of being judged. It's like, okay, I can work really hard to produce something, put it out there, but what if it stinks, And I mean, literally, these are things that go through our minds, and it's definitely a struggle. But this book is excellent because it addresses all that. It acknowledges it, and it acknowledges that we all deal with it, and you just have to keep going.
And it reminds me of, I can't remember which podcast, but another one of those authors who does the almost like method journalism, like that like embraces, for 1 year, I will follow the biblical tenets. And he just like lives like that as close as he can just to see what does it do to his diet. For 1 year, I will do this. And one of the things I can't remember the name or the article, but the premise was for 1 year it was going to be about learning, like how to learn and like learn like a child. And so he does all this research, he's watching all these things, but the example that sticks in my mind is learning how to ski in his 30s or 40s, and like watching his kid. It's like, why do kids like pick this up so quickly, and why do they do so well? And a big part of it was fear, because here he is, he's a journalist, he's on his freelance healthcare, even though if he's working for the Times or whatever, he's writing books and he's worried about falling and hurting himself. Who's going to provide? And so way more timid and doesn't get as good as his little kid who wanted to learn how to ski. And he looked at some studies, and an adult might fall, I'm just going to throw out some random numbers, like 10 times during the course of like learning how to ski on that day. And a kid will fall hundreds of times. They just get back up, they bounce, and they're able to be fearless. They're going to go there because they're not as worried about it. They know, okay, I fall over, I get back up. Me, I'm just like, oh, my lower back. Like if I break my hand, I can't sit on the computer all day. Who's going to pay for this? But the ability to go out and to some degree keep iterating. If I go down, that didn't work, that didn't work, that didn't work. These kids are having 10 times more opportunities to learn from their mistakes, to get better at skiing. And with everything else, that's part of why they're able to learn things so much quicker, is they haven't internalized a lot of those issues of criticism,
Right.
of like fear of what's going to happen to you, that we know happens in the brain. But it looks like a lot of what you've done and through these readings is we kind of have to get back to that sense of play, that sense of overcoming failure, that sense of being able to effectively ignore criticism.
Right. That reminds me of a similar book on art. I think it's The Way of the Artist by Julia Cameron. But anyway, she talks about how a lot of times what stops us from creating is all these thoughts. You're already thinking about the end product. Even before you start a composition, you're already thinking, are people going to like this? Is this going to do well? And we get hung up, and that totally paralyzes in our track. But she says the better way is just think about how fun it is to create music. How fun is it to sit in front of a computer and write an orchestral score, or to just explore a new plugin, try a new sound. I'm going to try this new effect, and just think about the fun of the process. And if you do that, it'll get you over the hump, rather than worrying about the end product too early.
I find, it's so weird. I've been playing for 20 years now, and there are a lot of things about what I do that aren't as fun as they used to be. And I love playing viola. Like, it is my calling. I really feel that. But yeah, the more I do it, and like the more monotony that gets put into what I do, it's less fun. And I did not expect this, Antshay.
Mm-hmm.
I did not expect this, man. Like, I was like, oh, it's going to be fun and new forever. But it really isn't. And so I'm now in that process of like finding a new way to make it fun. Have you ever experienced that like feeling of like, okay, this thing that was new to me, it was fun and vibrant, is now kind of like a dull shade of gray? Have you like overcome that? Like, what are some things that you've done to maybe like add more color to it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely the flip side. Like you said, if you want art to always be fun, it may not always be fun. There are probably times, I mean, there's definitely times where you just got to push through, especially it might be fun to start a project, but it might not be so fun to finish it. I don't know if you saw
Yeah.
the Basnack's tweet this morning, the
Yeah.
difference between starting a demo versus finishing a demo. So that's where the discipline and just building a healthy habit comes in. So when you get to that point where it's not fun, I mean, sometimes you do need to push through. You just need to push through, and you'll come out on the other side, and your product, probably will be will be good. But on the other hand, if you're totally burnt out, I mean, you do need to take a step back and reflect. You might need to just take a break, go for a hike, go for a bike ride, just do something else. What have you found that's worked for you?
At least when it comes to viola, I'm very burnt out on classical music. Not in the way that you would think is like, I still enjoy playing it, but I don't enjoy playing it with everyone. And when you work with people that are either mean, close-minded, or unimaginative, it makes the process seem futile. And so, like, in the rare opportunities I get to play here in Los Angeles, I really don't have a good time because everybody's just trying to play it like Berlin. And I'm like, okay, there are so many other genres in this world that we can draw inspiration from. And if this has been done before, why would anybody ever want to come see it? Why don't we try to do something new that no one's ever done before, even if it is the same notes and the same page? So I kind of came to that realization. So now I'm like learning. I like understand why Izai exists. I understand why Paganini exists. Because it's like you can only do Mozart and Beethoven so many times before you're like, okay, we got to change something. But I'm also learning extended techniques, like chopping and more rhythmic extended techniques for playing, just trying to like add that to my arsenal as well.
And also improvising. You've been, you're somebody that's really tried to improvise with hip hop and R&B, and it's been great. I mean, you're not only playing classical music, you're playing Hamilton, right? You're playing musicals. Yeah. So you explore other avenues, like even rapping. I listen to your rap.
Oh snap!
The brothers got bars.
Appreciate you, man. I gotta get back to writing some raps, man. I've been deep in the crypto right now.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, oh no.
Yeah.
Gotta make money.
Yeah, I know. I have to credit you guys for getting me into crypto.
What?
Yeah, it's because of listening to your taking notes that I started to just go for it.
Wow.
Learning about it. Blockchain, smart contracts, nodes,
the good stuff.
Yeah. So I'm definitely learning from you guys.
I don't want to turn this into a crypto pod, but like, I'm like working on another blog post and it's still kind of in the drafts right now. But the way I felt about Instagram and Web 2, I just had this, it's like what you said, it's like this creative urge that builds up and you got to release it, right? I felt that with Web 2 and I was like, oh man, this is a slice of the future. It's not the full future, but I can see this being here in 10 years. I feel the same way about Web 3 because of the power it enables for people, especially people who are from disadvantaged or disenfranchised economic backgrounds. So I'm curious, like, what are some of like the most interesting things you've learned through your journey of blockchain that we've kind of led you down?
Yeah, I've done a little bit of research just to learn about it. I think my approach right now is just, of course, we all want to make some money, and so people invest to get a return. I happened to jump in at probably the worst time ever. It was like the peak when I got in. But I was cautious when I went in at first, and just taking small steps with small investments. I mean, I would say overall, I was when it dipped further, I put in more investments in it. Overall, I'm still a little bit negative, but I'm overall positive in the long term outlook. But as far as the music space, I feel like there's maybe a lot of potential. People are trying to explore different things, and it's up to people like you to figure out, what would be viable, what would be good. So I haven't really seen a whole lot of that. I would say like what intrigued me is some of the projects. There's this producer named OK Sammy. He's made some beats and worked with visual artists, and sold it in a way that is only available by crypto. And there's only one copy of it, whatever it is. And that was a really interesting idea. But all in all, I can tell that it's really early as far as, Web 3.0 and how it's going to play out with the artists. But the negative thing that I do see is that a lot of artists are being burned. Their music is being uploaded and minted illegally or without their permission. It's not illegal, but it's without their permission. And it's a big problem. And I'm not sure how people are going to deal with that.
By this time, we'll have dropped an episode on that.
Oh, awesome.
Specifically, it's already in the can. It's next
wonderful.
up.
I will say that everybody who's kind of on the fence of like what this means for music, pay attention to the law over the next 5 years, because there will be litigation for copyright and people minting other people's work. The way we kind of like described it was like, Antshay, do you go to barbershops?
Yeah, I used to. I now I learned to cut my own hair since the pandemic. But anyway,
smart,
yes,
man.
Barbershop, yeah.
Okay, you ever been to a barber shop and had somebody come through with like a bag of DVDs that had like a screen print of like the movie? You're like, you want to see next Friday? You want to get next Friday for $5.75? And it's just literally somebody took a camcorder and just set it down.
I've definitely seen those.
You've seen the bootlegs.
Yeah.
I think this is like the digital version of that, right? Where, yes, they have the lossless or the relatively lossless version of the MP3, but they are ripping content that isn't their intellectual property. And so they're therefore liable to, legal action. And I think the precedent will be set very soon, especially when it comes to hit piece, because I think they received a lot of cease and desists and heard from a lot of lawyers. So I think the legal precedent will make this much clearer, but I don't think this is going to be something that happens when the market matures.
And it might just be that it is one of those things to where, just like with that DVD example, or more modern examples now, where it can just be the movie file of whatever it is. It looks just the same, but it doesn't have value. It doesn't have that perceived value. Right-clicking the JPEG of the water lilies does not have the same value as the actual water lilies. And so I think we're just going to have very much digital equivalents. That hit piece and other future scams or copies aren't going away. They'll still be there. But both, besides the legal side of things, I think like the market precedent is that no one sees value in those. So we're not going to run around selling those. Like, who would buy something like that? I mean, there obviously scams, like people can and will get ripped off, just like they already are now in the non-crypto space. But I don't think it's going to necessarily be elevated because of crypto. And who knows, it might even be reduced because you can tell authenticity even more effectively in the blockchain space. But the only point where I necessarily disagree with you is, Antshay, is that you are also part of this conversation. You can directly, you don't have to wait on a Drew or I or some of the others you're following. Just by you already being in this space and being part of the conversation, you are having an impact on how this technology shapes up. And so like that's something that at least excites Drew and I, and like why we have been brought into this space by very helpful people, and why we want to bring in others is because all the tech bros and all of them, they set up this infrastructure, and we're getting into this new phase, and it's still really early. And so we think it's an opportunity for creatives, for interesting people, for the next generation of people to come in and really shape the direction. We don't have a big, massive say on a one-to-one basis on how Web2, Facebook shapes up. I don't have a lot of say on how MasterCard goes about processing fees and who they give money to. I don't have much say on the laws and the mechanisms and the operational businesses of Amazon. I could just stop supporting their product, and then Jeff Bezos would just laugh at me from space in his cowboy hat because I'm not contributing as much to the bottom line. It takes massive amount of movement. But in this particular space, it's a little bit more like Discord. You can have your voice heard. You can form your influence. And well, it's still not as easy as just, oh, I want it to be this way. But there are consensus mechanisms and just communities that actually have influence by their direct voting power, by ownership, or just by our speech and ideas. So that, at least what excites us now, is because we're still early enough, there is a lot of opportunity for you to bring your experience, all that you've done, your ability to like learn that, killing out the fear of failure, your experience in the medical field, your experience in the music field, and that like unique combination of those two. You have a say in this, and that's what excites me most about the blockchain space.
Yeah, well, definitely talking to you guys now. Now I have it on my mental checklist. Okay, another thing to learn. I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna mint my own NFTs and get it out there.
Speaking of which, doom scrolling.
Mm-hmm.
We listened to your release of doom scrolling, and can you talk a little bit about where your headspace was when you made this?
Yeah, so I was actually part of a beat making class. It was a beta test class, and one of the writing prompts was doom scrolling, and I just decided to go with that. There were other writing prompts like trying something new or longing for something that you never had. When you join a class, there's all these opportunities to create. So anyway, that was one of the writing prompts, and I just kind of went with it. In fact, we had to turn in something within a week, and I literally the night before I was panicked because I had nothing to show. I had nothing to show, and so I just quickly pieced something together, and I kept working at it, and it turned out pretty good actually.
Yeah.
So I do want to say that it's so much easier to create music these days. Even if you can't make your own sounds, you could certainly find samples. And I definitely found some drum samples and synth samples, so that you don't have to create everything out of by scratch. But you could take what's out there and put something together. And there's no shame in that. Artists and beat makers, the people that really do it, they have no shame in like using someone else's samples. And that totally reminded me that you're putting out something yourself, right, Drew? Or is that still a
Yeah.
secret?
Oh, it's kind of a secret, but I guess we can dox it a little
Exclusive.
bit. And this is what I was going to suggest for you is like maybe you should mint it as like one of your first little creations, and just find an artist. There's so many artists on Twitter that are amazing. You can collaborate with them, go 50-50, and just put something out there. It'd be really cool.
Yeah.
I'm working on a minting a Bach cello suite movement. It's with a cellist artist that I used to play chamber quartets with in New York. Her name is Amy Kang. And she has these wonderful paintings where she painted the Bach cello suites.
Wow.
But she did it note by note. And so she uses different colors for different key changes, for different emphasis. And they just turn out to be these really beautiful geometric patterned pictures. And so I was like, yo, what if we did something similar? And I recorded the suite and you painted along to it. And it's like we just minted a music video. It could be good for educational purposes. It's another touch point for Bach. Plus we put Bach on the blockchain.
Yeah, there you go.
Bach is in space. He needs to be on the blockchain too.
Yes.
It's the Bach chain.
It's a Bach chain.
It's the Bach chain.
Yeah. No, that sounds great. Yeah, but doom scrolling, it's actually something I'm really proud of because, 2 years ago, like I said, I started producing electronic music. I was a total beginner. I didn't know what I was doing. And now, almost 2 years later, I finally felt confident in what I made, confident enough to put it on Spotify and iTunes and all the streaming services. So it's definitely been a journey, Yeah. There's a lot of work, stuff in between that I put it in SoundCloud, but I finally felt like, yeah, this is good enough to get it out there.
I love that you made the leap, and I'm sure we've all done a lot of research on doom scrolling. I do it a lot. It's funny where I've been talking about it. I literally deleted Twitter this morning because I was like, man, I just sat around in like 45 minutes on Twitter for.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that.
Yeah,
I saw that you're taking a break. Yeah, take a little break.
Take a little break. And just like, I think I might see if I can make a habit of that, because for the pod, we're going to start getting into TikTok. And so I got to figure that out. So it's a whole another ballgame. I'm like, I can't be spread across all of these. My
Too
brain
thin,
can't take
yeah.
it anymore. And I was just doom scrolling. I was just taking in too much Twitter. And what I learn a lot from Twitter, more so than pretty much any other platform, it's like I'm spending too much time on it. So maybe I'll just have, somewhat of a diet on some of these social medias where you just take some breaks on occasion. I wanted to, in kind of wrapping up this amazing Faking Fam feature, again, thank you for coming through. What is particularly unique, besides so much of you, which is incredibly unique and fascinating, is that across all ages and genres and different experience levels of our guests and our Faking fam, it's across the board. One thing that I think that's like unique that we don't get to see too many things of is support. You're finding support in Discord, in the community, in people saying, hey, here's some advice on this track, or hey, here's how to go about life. We're seeing support in books, but we will hear about people's parents when they're growing up. Yes, they supported me in my art, or no, they didn't, and here's the issues about that. But what I think is interesting and unique that we haven't necessarily dug into is the support from like your kids and from your wife, like having direct family support from your offspring, from your creation, your literal creations. And so what is that like? You're tapping into this young, air quotes, younger music. You're on Discord. You're doing all this super young, super cool dad stuff. What is it like? And what is that relationship with your kids as far as having support and you going out and making music videos and making music?
Yeah, I think support is so important. Like we talked several times in this interview, that's, there's fear when it comes to making art. And so in a Discord space, I think it's so important to support one another, be encouraging, listen to what other people make, give constructive feedback. So that is so important. Now, as far as my family, interesting fact is I'm actually the second beat maker in my family. My oldest son, Matt, he's just turned 18. He's actually the first beat maker, and he's been making incredible beats on FL Studio. And I watched him in his room making all this fire, getting hooked up with like rappers and things like that, putting out tons of YouTube. And I said, hey, Matt, I got to learn how to do this. I want to try what you're doing, And so I'm fortunate that I have a better beat maker in my house to support me. But yeah, definitely, Trevor, you just recently got married, right? Congratulations.
Thank
Congratulations.
you.
But yeah, there's something special about having your significant other support you in what you do. My wife, she is literally my biggest fan and my biggest cheerleader. And I am so lucky and honored that she's there for me. So I'm very lucky in that aspect. The flip side is, we all as artists, we have to spend so much time crafting our music, spend hours just sitting by yourself. You really have to pay attention to your relationships. You need to make time for your spouse, make time for your girlfriend. You have to value that, because if you don't, watch out. One day you might wake up and things aren't so good at home, and that's going to be trouble. So I encourage all the artists out there, work on your craft, yes, but definitely take time out for your family, significant others.
You don't want to be pulling a Kanye.
Oh God.
You don't want to be pulling a Kanye. You don't want Pete Davidson.
Oh man, yeah, Pete. It's a PSA. Pay attention to your relationships, or Pete Davidson will come for you.
He's coming.
He's coming. Antshay, this has been such a pleasure, and we knew it would be. Thank you again for being a significant part of our Discord community, of many other Discord communities, and I think this was definitely valuable for all the listeners, and we're excited to continue to learn together, to fail together, to mint NFTs together. But I'm excited about the future of the Faking Fam, knowing that you're part of it.
Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be invited and be on the podcast.
I mean, you're the GOAT, man, and like your support on Patreon as well is like so powerful, and we really want to find ways to learn from you as well. to help improve the community. So look out for a message from us. We want to get in touch.
Awesome.
Till next time.
Yes,
Till next
sir.
time.
Peace out.